Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Almighty God, who in thy wisdom and goodness has appointed the office of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of men, we beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of importance thrust in these islands. Let thy blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and of those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. On this we beg for Jesus Christ's sake. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
Amen. Morning, members. House is now in session. Yes. Go ahead.
Confirmation of minutes.
Members, the minutes of the 8th of March have been circulated. Are there any amendments or adjustments required? There are none. The minutes will be confirmed as printed.
Messages from the governor.
There are none.
Announcements by the speaker.
Announcements today. Today is Commonwealth Day, and as traditional, the head of state, formerly the Queen, would send her Commonwealth Day message. Today we have the King's Commonwealth Day message that has been circulated to each and every one of you. And we also have the Commonwealth Day affirmation that's been circulated as well. So we trust that you'll take the time to read through each and accord. Also, MP Kim Swan is absent today from the proceedings as well. Thank you.
Messages from the Senate.
There are none.
Papers and other communications to the House.
This morning, we have quite a few to be tabled today. And the first is in the name of the Premier Minister of Finance. Minister Campbell, you're going to do it? Okay.
No, I'll go first. I have one. I believe the Premier has a bunch. So, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the Information Commissioner's Office Annual Report 2022 as required by Section 58(1) of the Public Access to Information Petty Act 2010. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly, the Bermuda Hospitals Board 2018 Annual Report. I also, Mr. Speaker, have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the House of Assembly, the Pharmacy and Poisons Control of Prescriptions Regs 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Number 2 Regs 2022, Saving Provisions Regulations 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Number 2 Regulations 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Phased Reopening Amendment Number 2 Regs 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Phased Reopening Amendment Number 3 Regs 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Regs 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Amendment Number 2 Regs 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Amendment Number 3 Regs 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Amendment Number 4 Regs 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Amendment Number 5 Regs 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Amendment Number 6 Regs 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Extension Order 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Order 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Regs 2022 Revocation Regs 2022, the Public Health COVID-19 Regs 2022, the Quarantine COVID-19 Number 3 Amendment Number 3 Order 2022, the Quarantine COVID-19 Number 3 Amendment Number 4 Order 2022, the Quarantine COVID-19 Number 3 Amendment Number 5 Order 2022, the Quarantine COVID-19 Number 3 Amendment Number 6 Order 2022, the Quarantine COVID-19 Order 2022 Revocation Order 2022, the Quarantine COVID-19 Order 2022, the Quarantine Amendment Act 2022, and the Pharmacy and Poisons Amendment Act 2022. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Petitions.
There are none.
Statements by ministers and junior ministers.
Yes, this morning we have 3 statements this morning. The first is in the name of the Deputy Premier. Would you like to present your statement now?
Morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Morning to the listening public and members of the legislature. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to inform the Honorable House of the Ministry of Home Affairs concerns and strategy to better manage dogs. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, dogs are very much part of our community. I am reminded of the saying, dogs are man's best friend. And I hear people describe their dogs as members of their family. I quote, "My dog is my child," they say. Well, Mr. Speaker, the vast majority of dog owners on the island, for the vast member of dog owners on the island, Mr. Speaker, they treat their dogs like a friend or a family member. And their dogs are peaceful members of the community. However, for a significant minority of owners, their stories are very much different. For these dog owners, their dogs are constrained to the end of a chain or limited to the confines of a kennel. Interaction is minimal. Training is minimal. Socialization is minimal. Care is minimal. To these owners, I ask, why do you have a dog? It is mostly this set of owners of dogs that are responsible for the stream of unprovoked dog attacks on island. Mr. Speaker, data held by Animal Control points to a trend in our community of dogs being out of control. Over the years 2019 to 2022, calls to assist police, complaints of biting injury to a person, and chasing threatening behavior were highest during 2022. Mr. Speaker, you may recall news reports regarding multiple dog attacks that occurred on Friday, January 13th of this year. From the perspective of Animal Control, that day was a dark day for Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, I think of senior citizens, the children, and the animals that fell victim that day to dogs being out of control. I think of the bites to heads, face, and legs. I shudder to think of the horrible fear these victims must have endured. The anguish, the psychological scars that may remain long after the physical wounds have healed. I shudder to think that of the more horrific outcomes that could have occurred. Friday, January 13th was an unusual day in a number of attacks that occurred, but sadly, dog attacks have become a common occurrence. They are a threat to public health and sense of security. Mr. Speaker, people are afraid, and this is a problem. There is a real anxiety in the community where members of the public are scared to walk with their dogs or to enjoy the railway trail or even their own yard. Complaints tell of being trapped in their cars or their homes for fear of an attack by an uncontrolled dog. Mr. Speaker, not all loose dogs pose a real danger, but the fear these callers experience is absolutely real. Mr. Speaker, the vast majority of dog interactions are friendly, positive, playful, and peaceful. We should not lose sight that when our attention is drawn to the interactions with mismanaged, poorly trained, or untrained dogs who are causing pain, fear, and anxiety. Our challenges towards those owners in the community who are not doing the right things for their community and for their dogs. Mr. Speaker, we believe that these negative incidents are rooted in a number of contributing factors that will be dealt with in collaboration with partner organizations. First, there has been a significant rise in the number of unlicensed, unsocialized dogs, a very high percentage of which are of the American Pit Bull breed. Mr. Speaker, you may recall that in 2018, this government responded to these calls to ease prior restrictions on this breed. We gave the community that which it asked for. And now the time has come to ask whether the community has demonstrated that we collectively are responsible enough to maintain this breed. The large number of illegal dogs is likely also a result of owners who are unaware of the legislative responsibilities of or simply have no regard for the Dogs Act 2008. Perhaps there is a perception that enforcement is weak and owners will only do what is necessary if caught. There is also a certain callousness towards a biting incident with a simple dismissal. That's what dogs do. For some people, breeding represents an opportunity for income. Unlicensed breeding has run amok with little forethought to the future homes, the well-being of the animal, or the well-being of the community. The animals are distributed to anyone in exchange for a few dollars or less. A certain breed has become a cheap commodity for profit and opportunity. There is no real sensitivity, love, or care involved. People acquire a certain breed as easily as they go to the store and buy a loaf of bread. If it goes bad, Mr. Speaker, they just throw it away and spend a few dollars to get another. This is abuse, plain and simple. We should not tolerate this type of behavior in this environment, and these are people who should not be allowed to care or possess a dog. There are people among us that do not believe in spaying or neutering. They believe that every pregnant dog should birth a litter with no thought of where the puppies will go or who will care for them. This is an expectation that the dog wardens or the SPCA will find new homes for the animals, and a belief held by some that they can let someone else deal with the problems they produce, quote unquote. These factors have led to a plethora of dogs on island and a large number of dogs being abandoned, unclaimed, tied to posts, left at the gate of the SPCA. Our kennels are full, Mr. Speaker. The SPC kennels are full. Foster homes are limited, but the stream of dogs in need continues strong. Mr. Speaker, this is not right. This laissez-faire attitude must change. Likewise, the attitude of certain owners that they do not have to proactively train or socialize their pets. We need to create a different and new environment, change public perception and attitudes. We need an environment in which receivers of puppies demand better breeding and care by breeders, and breeders demand better of new owners, that the needs of the animal are met, such that they become well adjusted to society. Mr. Speaker, we recognize the need for active support of the community in addressing these issues so that any solution that affects the community will be successful. Widespread advertising, harsher penalties, more efficient judicial processes are easy steps available. However, more steps will be necessary to bring about the needed mind shift in dog owners. Hence, Mr. Speaker, I am happy to announce that I have already called for a reconvening of the Ad hoc Canine Committee, which will be comprised of persons in the field of animal welfare, behavior, and training. They will be asked to examine the current dog situation in Bermuda and provide their recommendations to me. I also affirm my support for those on the front lines of this problem, the animal control officers and the SPCA officers. We are moving to ensure full staffing of animal control officers with the equipment and training they require. We will augment our support of the SPCA to supplement their programs to improve animal welfare in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, my ministry is committed to broader advertising to ensure owners know what is required of them. In addition, regulations are complete to implement ticketing for minor offenses. This will allow the animal control section to deal with minor offenses more expeditiously and allow the team to concentrate their efforts on more serious matters. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Home Affairs has increased direct support to the SPCA from $10,000 to $30,000 to assist the delivery of their programs. The Ministry of Home Affairs has made significant progress with an online system for renewal of dog licenses. This will make renewal of dog licenses far easier and convenient for the dog owner and relieve some of the administrative burden for the department. In the same vein, we have initiated an online complaint system and will be enhancing that system to better manage the number and location of complaints. Mr. Speaker, based upon advice from Attorney General Chambers, we will be considering amendments to the Dog Act to help ensure better control of dogs. Mr. Speaker, we are actively working on solutions to alleviate some of these issues. We recognize that we need to think outside the box and bring to bear many tools to solve these problems. The complex issues surrounding dogs has persisted for decades for many governments, and we are moving collaboratively forward to address them. The primary goal is to have our canine companions be happy and civil members of our community. Mr. Speaker, in the coming months, I look forward to reporting on our progress of these important initiatives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the AG, Madam AG.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to rise in this honorable house this morning to inform honorable members and the public that the Matrimonial Causes Faultless Divorce Amendment Act 2022 comes into operation today. Mr. Speaker, as I previously stated in this honorable house in February 2022, the Matrimonial Causes Faultless Divorce Amendment Act 2022 amends the Matrimonial Causes Act 1974 to reform the legal process for obtaining a divorce, nullity of marriage, or judicial separation. The stated policy aim is to reduce family conflict during matrimonial proceedings by removing the unhelpful blaming and shaming associated with having to prove in court that the conduct of one of the parties is the cause of the breakdown in the marriage and to correspondingly lower the cost of obtaining a divorce. In technical terms, Mr. Speaker, the new faultless divorce legislative framework replaces the requirement for persons seeking a divorce to satisfy the code of irretrievable breakdown of the marriage by proving evidence of conduct, such as adultery or unreasonable behavior, during the divorce proceedings. Rather, under the new regime, partners in a marriage may apply for a divorce based on a statement of irretrievable breakdown as conclusive evidence that the marriage has broken down irretrievably. Mr. Speaker, during the legislative process, I notified this Honorable House that bringing the Amendment Act into operation would require changes to the Matrimonial Causes Rules 1974 to update the procedural rules of court with respect to matrimonial proceedings. In preparation for implementation, the Ministry Headquarters Policy Team, assisted by Parliamentary Counsel from the Attorney General's Chambers, completed extensive consultation with the Honorable Chief Justice, the Honorable Justice Sturham, the Registrar of the Supreme Court, and the Bermuda Bar Council on the development of the Matrimonial Causes Rules 2023, which repeal and replace the 1974 rules. Additionally, support and resources were offered to assist the Honorable Chief Justice and the Judicial Department with the exercise of composing these new rules, which are lawfully made by the Chief Justice. Mr. Speaker, great effort was taken to revise and streamline the statutorily prescribed forms required to institute and proceed with faultless divorce and other matrimonial proceedings generally under the updated rules. Prescribed rules for these prescribed forms for these purposes are contained in the schedule to the rules. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, officers of the Information and Digital Technologies Department are consulting the Supreme Court Registry as they create an electronic application process which, when ready for public launch, will facilitate electronic filings in a more user-friendly manner. The aim is for parties to divorce and other matrimonial proceedings to be able to successfully navigate the process with or without an attorney. Mr. Speaker, as the work continues at the Supreme Court Registry to prepare the digital forms for public rollout, prospective applicants and attorneys are directed to the prescribed forms in the schedule to the new Matrimonial Causes Rules 2023, which are available for download on the Bermuda Laws website, www.bermudalaws.bm. Alternatively, a PDF copy of each of the forms containing the new rules can be found on the government portal, www.gov.bm, using the hyperlink www.gov.bm/matrimonial-causes-2023, and that will be posted for the public's reference. The first tranche of digital forms are planned for public launch in April, with details of how to access the digital forms to be provided at that time. Thereafter, additional digital forms will become available as the Supreme Court Registry incorporates feedback from the matrimonial bar and as their operational processes demand. The continuation of that exercise notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, today signifies the official notice to this Honorable House and members of the public of the commencement of both the Matrimonial Causes Faultless Divorce Amendment Act 2022 and the Matrimonial Causes Rules 2023 as recorded in the Official Gazette. Starting today, applicants and their legal representatives can commence matrimonial proceedings in the Supreme Court for divorce, nullity of marriage, or judicial separation under the faultless divorce procedure. As a point of clarity, the commencement of the Matrimonial Causes Faultless Divorce Amendment Act 2022 and the Matrimonial Causes Rules 2023 will not affect matrimonial proceedings commenced before the amendments came into operation. Mr. Speaker, the successful execution of this government initiative demonstrates the earnestness of public officers and external partners to work collaboratively across functional lines to achieve a collective goal. I am extremely grateful to everyone involved for this monumental achievement. In particular, I take this opportunity to commend Permanent Secretary Gina Hurst-Mabry, Acting Deputy Chief Parliamentary Counsel Amani Lawrence, Assistant Parliamentary Counsel Alsha Wilson, and Law Reform Policy and Strategy Counsel Jason Otterbridge for their commitment to the implementation of this very important legislative initiative. I am even more pleased that this initiative is now available to the public for its intended purposes of decreasing contention amongst parties in matrimonial proceedings and is accessible at reduced cost to these individuals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We have another statement from the Honorable Kim Wilson, Minister of Health. Ms. Wilson, you have the floor.
Mr. Acting Speaker and honorable members, I rise today to share information regarding bed capacity and discharge policies at the Bermuda Hospitals Board, BHB. There have been stories circulating in the community on this topic, and I believe that it is helpful to improve our understanding of the process and its impact. Mr. Deputy Speaker, ensuring that every person who needs an inpatient acute care bed has a timely admission to the care they need, and it is not only important for the patient, but also for the smooth running of any hospital. If there is not an available bed, then someone who has arrived in the emergency department needing to be admitted has to wait. At times of extreme pressure, there might not be available beds for an elective surgery. It is very frustrating and often stressful to be the patient who needs the bed at those times. BHB, like hospitals worldwide, is capacity constrained and works hard for every patient to have the earliest safe discharge. This is only possible if partners inside and outside the hospital work together to achieve the goal at an earliest safe discharge. At BHB, the biggest impact of having high bed capacity is that patients who come to the emergency department and need to be admitted must wait until the individual has been discharged from an acute care bed, leaves the ward, and the room is cleaned. While these patients wait, they are using an emergency department bed, which in turn impacts the availability of patient rooms in emergency for new patients to be seen. This can cause longer waits for people with minor illnesses or injuries, or the need to use areas outside of patient rooms to ensure care is delivered for those whose care needs cannot wait. To conceptualize this, in January 2023 was a busy time for BHB, which is expected as the winter months see more respiratory illnesses, often resulting in increased emergency visits and higher admissions. In the month of January alone, there were 2,766 emergency attendances. The average length of stay in the emergency department for all patients was 3 hours and 59 minutes from arrival to leaving the emergency department. For patients who were admitted in January, however, it took on average 17 hours and 38 minutes from the moment their emergency care was completed to when they left the emergency for the unit. While it is not acceptable to have patients waiting for an extensive period, it is important to note that BHB ensures these patients receive a standard of care similar to those on a ward by sending an additional inpatient nurse and doctor to emergency. Considering the acute care wards, on average, the length of stay in the acute care units was 11.3 days in January, which was higher than both December, when the length of stay was 9.4 days, and in February, when the length of stay was 8.2 days. The average length of stay figure for acute care units can give an indication of how ill people are, but it is also an indicator of how efficiently discharge processes are working. The average length of stay goal at BHB is comparable to overseas hospitals at 7 days for most patients, although with some conditions such as a stroke, the expected length of stay is longer. The goal is always to discharge patients as soon as they are medically fit. Being in hospital is critical for certain care needs, but is not a good place for people who no longer need acute care. Mr. Acting Speaker, spending a long time in hospital can lead to an increased risk of falling, sleep deprivation, catching infections, and sometimes mental and physical deconditioning. BHB usually runs at about 92% capacity or more. It is not unusual for hospitals to run at this level, and it would be very expensive to have too many beds that are staffed and ready for use but empty. If people hear BHB is running at 100% capacity or more, that means the hospital is very full, but there is still a lot of admitting and discharging that takes place during this time. Between November 2022 and February 2023, there were over 960 discharges from BHB's 3 acute care units, which house 90 beds. Over 60% of those persons discharged met the BHB goal of 7 days or less, and nearly 90% were discharged within 2 weeks. However, for 7.6% of the people discharged over this time, it took between 14 to 21 days to be discharged. For over 2%, it took between 3 and 4 weeks, and 4.8% of people discharged over this time had been in hospital for over a month, with a small group in an acute care bed 2 months or more. Having even a small number of beds unavailable makes a huge difference every day. Mr. Acting Speaker, challenges with the discharge process at BHB are as follows. 1, a small number of patients need additional support in place before they can be safely discharged. This is one of the many ways our aging population impacts hospital services. Seniors have more complex care needs, and it may not be possible just to discharge them home without additional services being in place, or it may not be safe to discharge them home at all, and they may need nursing home placement. If there are no nursing home beds available, if home care services cannot be funded or are not available, or if a family is delayed in submitting financial assistance forms, this can all result in an individual being in hospital bed longer than needed. Another common scenario is patients waiting to be picked up by their loved ones after they have been discharged. While delays of a few hours or a day or two does not seem so bad, there is still a direct impact on someone else's care. A patient may be waiting in the emergency department for that room to be free so that they can be moved up to the ward. If a patient is discharged first thing in the morning, but a family member waits until the evening to pick them up, then that 10 to 12 hours is how long the person in emergency must wait, and there is always additional time required to clean and prepare the room for the next patient. BHB has a goal to have all patients who are ready for discharge to be picked up by 11 a.m. This is no different than a hotel having strict check-in and check-out times. If hotel guests left when they felt like it on their day of departure, when you arrived at a hotel, you would not know when your room would be available and you would have to wait. Picking up loved ones ready for discharge by 11 o'clock a.m. can make a big difference for patients who are waiting for that bed. Mr. Acting Speaker, there are a number of planned admissions to the inpatient acute care unit, such as elective surgery. The vast number of admissions, however, are unplanned through the emergency department. This means each day the hospital does not know how many people will need beds, when they will arrive, nor what is wrong with them. Unexpected peaks will therefore cause pressure to the bed flow within the hospital. Peaks in unplanned admissions can impact elective surgeries. Recently improved processes in surgery have helped to reduce the impact of unplanned admissions on planned surgeries. Between April 22 and January 23, only 0.6% of planned surgeries, or 37 in total, were postponed due to there being no available beds in ICU or in the acute care ward. The biggest cause of surgery cancellations is actually patients not showing up or calling to cancel themselves. Over the same time period, 142 surgeries were canceled by patients, and 84 surgeries were canceled because the patient was unfit for surgery as assessed by the surgeon or anesthetist. Mr. Acting Speaker, the causes of reduced bed capacity in a hospital can be multiple and complex, but can be greatly assisted by on-time pickup on the day of discharge, improved availability of nursing home placements, and by families making provision for home care. It should never be forgotten, however, that while it can be common to refer to this as bed blocking, behind the issue are many vulnerable individuals with complex care needs who may be impacted by social or financial factors. These are our patients, our parents, our grandparents, our unwell or injured loved ones. BHB is here to provide necessary high-quality care and needs all of our help to do so in a manner which is fair and efficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next statement is from the Minister of Social Development and Seniors, the Honorable Tanae Furbert. Ms. Furbert, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. This morning I rise with much hope and reassurance as I provide my honorable colleagues with an update on the Independent Living Program, the first of its kind to be established in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, I say reassurance because the Independent Living Program will offer a secure level of comfort and support to our young persons between the ages of 18 and 24 years aging out of the care of the Director of Child and Family Services. This program will be a lifeline, a safety net for our young adults. Mr. Speaker, the Children's Act 1998 legally allows the Director of Child and Family Services to place into foster care or residential care children whose parents are unable or unwilling to safely care for them in their own homes. The Act gives the Director parental authority over children in care from birth to 18 years old, at which time they are legally an adult, and the Director no longer has the authority to provide care or make decisions on behalf of these young persons. Mr. Speaker, I ask my honorable colleagues to cast their minds back and reflect on their loved ones, young persons in their personal families between the ages of 18 and 24 years. and to think about the family support system they have, whether parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, or godparents, a village of support indeed. Mr. Speaker, this is what we endeavor to create at the Independent Living Program, a warm, secure, supportive environment where young adults aging out of the government's care can grow and develop into confident, productive young men and women. Mr. Speaker, international research provides evidence that of the many thousands of young people who are discharged from government care each year, a sizable number lack the life skills or resources necessary to succeed independently. Compared to the general population, these young adults face higher rates of homelessness, unemployment, dependency on public assistance, physical and mental health problems, and involvement with the criminal justice system. Therefore, independent living programs which incorporate independent living skills training, personal development, and educational and vocational support are a strategy to improve, if not mitigate, these types of outcomes. Mr. Speaker, we want to set our young adults on a trajectory that has purpose and meaning for them. The goal of the Independent Living Program is to afford them the best opportunity for success, and its mission is to empower, encourage, and edify young adults as they transition into adulthood so they achieve their goals and become independent and self-sufficient. Mr. Speaker, in 2020, the Ministry of Social Development and Seniors committed to developing an independent living program as a throne speech initiative. In 2021-22, the ministry received a budget allocation to progress its development after searching for the best place to establish this program. A lease for the Garrison View building in St. George was secured from the Bermuda Housing Corporation, and keys were handed over on October 13, 2022. To ensure the safety of the building and its residents, security cameras were installed around the exterior of the building and in common areas. Internet connectivity has also been installed for the residents and staff. During the next fiscal year, the Independent Living Program anticipates having the final phase of renovations of the physical plant completed and fully staffed, whereby clients' needs are met and they are guided through this transitional journey. Mr. Speaker, this valuable program will provide more than housing for these young adults. They will receive guidance, support, and the connection to community resources that will solidify a foundation for their transition into independence and adulthood. The Independent Living Program has been developed in alignment with the Council on Accreditation's Youth Independent Living Services standards, and the coordinator and staff have obtained certification as independent living specialists. Mr. Speaker, the Independent Living Program is a 24-hour secure facility which offers dormitory-style living and has the capacity for up to 11 young adults for a maximum of 2 years. They will participate in activities such as life skills group, guided goal setting, advocacy, educational planning, community engagement, peer support, and individual counseling. The life skills groups include money management, food management, personal appearance, healthcare, job maintenance, knowledge of community resources, emergency and safety skills, volunteering, spirituality, and leisure activities. Mr. Speaker, to be eligible to participate in the program, young persons must have been clients of the Department of Child and Family Services who have aged out of care of the director without a reunification plan, and referred by one of the social workers of the department. During the last fiscal year, there have been a total of 11 referrals, 7 males and 4 females. For this calendar year to date, there have been 4 additional referrals. Mr. Speaker, Thursday, March 2nd, 2023 marked a transformational moment in history as Bermuda's first independent living program was officially opened. Currently, there is 1 resident who has commenced their transitional journey. We're excited and look forward to more of our young adults being empowered and encouraged to contribute positively to our community. Mr. Speaker, in closing, let me share that the fruition of the Independent Living Program has been a collaborative effort. I extend my heartfelt thanks to the staff at the Department of Child and Family Services, the Ministry of Public Works, the Bermuda Housing Corporation, the Department of Financial Assistance, and the St. George's stakeholders. I also take this opportunity to highlight and thank our community resources in the Department of Financial Assistance and Workforce Development, Bermuda College, HSBC, and the Mirrors Program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister Ferber. That's the final statement for the day. We have some questions for the Deputy Premier, Walter Rabban, from MP Pearman. Mr. Pearman.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. Mr. Acting Speaker, I've been a dog owner my entire life, and I would like to support the minister's perceptive observation that dog issues can also arise because of dog owner issues. Leaving to one side his comments about pit bulls and their owners, I'd like to focus this morning on the minister's comments about the government's forthcoming legislative changes. The minister stated there would be ticketing, on-the-spot ticketing, I assume, for minor offenses. And I'd invite the minister just to give a little bit more meat to the bones there about that. Is this a new initiative? Is there no ticketing scheme already in place? So that's my first question. Thank you.
Minister.
What I can inform the House and the honorable member is that we are working with the AG's chambers to put together a legislative initiative around that. It's been in work for quite some time. There are a number of changes to and regulations in the Dog Act that we're formalizing. We're working with chambers to do that.
Mr. Pearman.
Thank you for a supplementary. I thank the minister for that answer. In addition to the ticketing, on-the-spot ticketing for minor offenses, what other powers do you envisage implementing for dog wardens, just at a high level?
Primarily, we are working on the ticketing because it is important for our wardens to be able to act swiftly. We are also going to be not so much in relation to the legislative, but we're going to be having discussions with the judicial department as to how we can more efficiently carry out once unlike offenses have been committed and it's clear that justice can be speedily carried out, because that's one of the challenges we've had is that cases get caught up in the bureaucracy of the judicial process and cannot be effectively carried out. And that creates an environment where people think that we're not effective at the enforcement.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Pearman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. Second supplementary. The new powers for dog wardens were announced by the Honorable Minister that they would be coming out. He announced them last August, and on Friday, the minister said that the legislation would be coming by July. Can the minister indicate whether these plans can be publicly shared and consulted upon sooner than July? Thank you.
Like all legislative measures, they have to go through the process of being properly advised by chambers and approved by cabinet. And once we have that process completed, I'm happy to make the public aware, because we know that public education around this is crucial.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. Second question. Other than the on-the-spot ticketing point, which you've clarified with thanks, do you feel that other additional powers are actually needed in your view, or is it a question of really enforcing existing powers that already exist? Thank you.
As I referenced in my statement, part of the work I wish to do with working with the ad hoc committee is think of some other solutions that we can deploy. Obviously, there's a regime in place, but it's not responding to the situation that we have as effectively as it can. So I want to get feedback and ideas from others so that we can perhaps do some things outside the box that can be more effective.
Mr. Pearman.
Yes, supplementary. Have the dog wardens themselves actually identified any particular powers beyond the ticketing point that they feel they need?
Nothing that I've been informed of, but that'll be a part of the process because they will be a part of the discussion as well.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker.
Okay, Ms. Jackson, you had some questions for the Deputy Premier.
Yes, good morning, Deputy Speaker. I just have one question. I was just wondering if the minister might be able to give his thoughts on an animal abuser register.
Minister.
I can discuss it with the committee and see what they think about it, Mr. Speaker.
Any further questions? No more? Mr. Jackson? The next question is for the AG from Mr. Pearman. Mr. Pearman.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker, and thank you to the Honorable and Learned Minister for her announcement today that this massive legislative change in matrimonial law is coming into effect. And the Learned Attorney General will recall that she had the support of the opposition for this change. And I think it's a great thing because, of course, we're taking the shame out of it and we're putting children first. I do have one question specifically, and it was a matter raised when we debated the bill. We talked about the 1-year barrier before you could do that. And it was something you indicated you would give further consideration to. And I'm just wondering if you have had a chance to consider that further. And if so, what your thoughts are on whether the 1-year barrier would be removed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
AG Simmons.
And thank you, Acting Speaker. We are actually going to monitor and assess the impact of the new amendments, and that particular consideration will be more relevant to the second tranche of amendments. So it has been noted, and it will be discussed and explored further.
Mr. Pearman.
Yes, supplementary. In terms of the second tranche of amendments that you previously identified, are there others that you have in mind beyond the 1-year bar? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. We have actually received submissions from the matrimonial bar, and there will be further consultation in that regard, and that will be the subject of information to Cabinet and this Honorable House in due course. But yes.
Mr. Pearman.
Yes, second question. Madam AG, the Honorable and Learned Minister, you'd indicated in the statement this morning that this change in the law will not be retrospective, and therefore applications that are I assume before today will be dealt with under the old system. Is there a particular reason for not having retrospectivity in this instance? And just curious what your thinking is. Thank you.
The view on that, Mr. Speaker, is for proceedings to continue, particularly when they've been in an advanced stage. So we haven't made it retroactive.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam AG. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The next question is for the Minister Tanae Furbert from Ms. Jackson. Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. My first question, I am not sure, but if the minister could just remind me how many available units there are at the Transitional Living Center?
Ms. Minister Furbert.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. I'd first like to apologize to the community because publicly we initially announced that there were 12, but there are up to 11 units available at Garrison's View.
Thank you, Minister. Any further questions, Ms. Jackson?
Yes, of the 11 available.
This is supplementary or
This
not?
is a supplementary.
Okay.
Of the 11 available units, you've mentioned that there are 15 referrals. How many people will be in the units shortly?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Acting Speaker. Currently, there is one resident in the house. There is one resident taking up community-based services. We have referrals currently. Another person will be moving in May, and there are 2 additional referrals pending. So it's a slow progression of persons who are moving in as we make assessment and availability for the program.
Any further questions?
Yes, Mr. Deputy
Jackson?
Speaker. I'm wondering, will there be any rent that will have to be paid by the residents to stay in the Transitional Living Center?
Mr. Acting Speaker, I have mentioned before that this is an independent living program. We are preparing young persons for the actual real world of renting. And so, yes, rent will be paid once young persons have a secured employment, and also with the assistance of financial assistance.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes, my supplemental to that would be how much is it thought that the rent would be?
Ms. Furbert?
I have, Mrs. Acting Speaker, I do have a number in my head, but I'm not going to announce it because I'm not quite sure. And I will endeavor to get the correct answer to my honorable colleague.
Anything further, Ms. Jackson?
I have a final third question.
Yes, continue.
Thank you. This is around staffing. I was just wondering when the full complement of staff will be hired.
Mr. Acting Speaker, the full complement of staff will be hired once we increase our capacity. Right now, there is one person, and to have all staff in place would be unnecessary with just one person. But we have the budget, we have the funds to be able to provide staff capacity, and as our numbers increase, we will increase capacity. I'm sorry, we will increase staffing, and also the rent, I did get the answer, $550.
Ms. Jackson, anything further?
Yes, I do have a supplementary on the staff. I'm just wondering whether there will be, you mentioned cameras, security cameras. I'm wondering whether any physical security officer will be on site.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. Yes, security staff will be on site.
No further
That's
questions.
it. Thank you. That's the end of the question period. The next item is congratulatory and obits. Any? There pretty be none. There pretty be none. The next order of business, matter of privilege. There none, Ms. Beal. Personal explanation. Notice of motion for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance. Pretty be none. Introduction of bills. Are there any introduction? No. Government bills. Opposition bills, none. Private bills, private members' bills, none. Notices of motion. Orders of the day. Resumption of Committee of Supply for further consideration of estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year 2023, 2024. Deputy Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that the House do now resume in Committee of Supply to consider the estimates of revenue and expenditure for 2023-24.
We call on the chair who will lead the session, start the session off, the honorable member, Mr. Richard Pearman.
Good morning, honorable members and members of the listening public. We are now in the Committee of Supply for estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year 2023, 2024. First up this morning is the debate on the Ministry of Education, which is a 5-hour debate, and it will be on 4 heads. Yes, first up, there's another one after. 4 heads, which are heads 16, the Ministry of Education Headquarters, 17, the Department of Education, 18, Libraries and Archives, and 41, Bermuda College. The Honorable Minister, Diala Rebane. Minister, if you're ready, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I note you said Diala Rebane. That means you must have known me for many years. No.
I could call you Richard if you prefer.
Mr. Chair, I move the following heads: 16, Ministry of Education Headquarters, 17, Department of Education, 18, Libraries and Archives, and 41, Bermuda College, now be taken under consideration.
It has been moved that the heads identified by the minister be now taken under consideration. Is there any objection? No. Minister, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, today I am pleased to present the budget for the Ministry of Education, which comprises of Ministry of Education Headquarters, Head 16, the Department of Education, Head 17, the Department of Libraries and Archives, Head 18, and the Bermuda College, Head 41. Mr. Chairman, the 2023-24 budget for the Ministry of Education is $139,847,000. and can be found on page B 126 of the estimate and revenue expenditure for the year 2023-24. This represents an increase of $4,497,000 compared to the original 2022-23 budget. The current account of 2023-24 estimated revenues for the Ministry of Education is $258,000. The capital expenditure estimates for acquisitions and development increased from $2,273,000 to $6,065,000 in 23-24. The number of full-time equivalents for the ministry increased by 36 from 1,034 to 1,070 employees. Mr. Chairman, I commence the budget debate today by detailing the expenditure for the Ministry of Education Headquarters, Head 16. The mission of the ministry headquarters, which is found on page B 127, is to provide strategic leadership and policy direction for education and lifelong learning. The objectives of the ministry headquarters have been outlined accordingly on the same page. Mr. Chairman, the commitment to education reform and changes and the transformations in the public school system continues to be the main priority. In November, we engaged the Education Reform Unit, the Project Management Office for the Education Reform Initiative. Last Friday, I gave this Honorable House an overview of the Education Reform Unit. As a reminder, the unit is staffed by public officers reassigned from the Department of Education and other ministries, as well as consultants, and is fully engaged in determining factors such as curriculum, educational philosophy, student policy, pedagogy, and staff training and development with an overall aim to modernize and transition to a socially and academically progressive system to ensure a wholesome, accessible, and equitable education for our children. Mr. Chairman, the Education Reform Unit, led by Ms. Lisa De Silva, an educator with over 25 years of experience, is housed within the new business unit, Education Reform 26140, and budgeted by the ministry headquarters, and involves 26 working groups consisting of 1. Inclusivity and cultural responsiveness. 2. School choice and admissions. 3. School leadership. 4. System leadership. 5. Professional learning and future workforce and capability building. 6. Learning environments. 7. IT strategy. 8. Transportation. 9. Learning partnerships. 10. Personalized learning capability. 11. Metrics and KPIs. 12. Resourcing and budgeting. 13. The Education Authority. 14. Communications and engagement. 15. School transformation. 16. Overall curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment frameworks. 17. S1 signature learning programs, the existing signatures. 18. S3 and S2 signature learning program development for the existing signature learning programs. 19. S1. This is the new signature learning program development. 20. Parish primary school curriculum and learning experiences development for P1 and P7. 21. Senior school math. 22. Senior school science. 3. Pedagogy. 4. Graduation. 5. Certification. And 6. Assessment. Mr. Chairman, this extensive listing of working groups provides insight about the breadth and work that is required and which is being undertaken for sustainable education reform. And this list also indicates the extent and type of manpower and focus efforts that are required to transform our schools and the Bermuda public school system. Mr. Chairman, in September 2022, the first 2 S1 signature learning programs were fully executed at Cedar Bridge, offering trades and professions and science, technology, engineering, and math, otherwise known as STEM. The Barclay Institute offering health and social care and financial and insurance services. The signature school transformation teams are actively engaged and turning their attention to the next program, which is scheduled to open September 2024 at Sands Secondary Middle School. That means that the school will provide both a middle school and signature learning program simultaneously in that year. Mr. Chairman, the Education Reform Unit's teams are diligently supporting the implementation of these programs, as well as developing the S1 and S3 curriculum for the existing signature learning programs. in addition to implementing developmental work for the school transformation teams who are actively preparing for the transition of Purvis Primary and Francis Patton Primary Schools into parish primary schools for Warwick and Hamilton Parish in June 2023. The unit is also assisting with the logistics of transitioning students from Clearwater Middle School and Heron Bay Primary School, both of which will close at the end of the 2023 school year. The ministry is in the final stages of developing the master plan for education reform infrastructure and development. Details of this plan will be released in the near future. Mr. Chairman, education reform also includes the ongoing work to establish an education authority. The legislation for the authority will be completed in the 2023 legislative year. The History and Legacy Committee will also be established to commence the scope of work for historical documentation of past and present schools throughout the island. Mr. Chairman, to broaden our outreach to the community, we continue to embark upon a communications plan which allows the ministry to keep our stakeholders and the general public informed virtually utilizing social media platforms. The Ministry of Education currently hosts One Education Matters, a radio program that airs every 2 weeks on Wednesdays on Magic 102.7. 2, Education Connection, a weekly information and discussion talk show that airs on the government and MOED Facebook and CITV YouTube channels. 3, weekly morning discussions on 3 radio stations, Power 95, Hot 107.5, and Vibe 103. Mr. Chairman, these programs are utilized to feed a broad range of information to the public at large about the many activities, services, and programs relating to education reform, the Bermuda Teacher Induction Program, adult and youth libraries, the Child Development Program, Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy, and many other initiatives. Mr. Chairman, on page B127, you will see that the Ministry of Education Headquarters has been allocated a budget of $7,236,000 for the fiscal year 2023-24. Within Program 1601, Business Unit 26000, General Administration, $815,000 will support the operational and administrative functions of the ministry. Last year, this business unit included funds for consultants for education reform. However, a separate business unit, 26140, has been established for education reform. Mr. Chairman, continuing on the Program 1601, Business Unit 26140, Education Reform Unit, $4,412,000 operational expense for Education Reform Unit includes $675,200 for general office operations and supplies, and $815,000 for the continuance of the Learning First program, and approximately $2.92 million for consultants, for media and other professional support services, for meeting and events, and professional technical services required for systems and school building infrastructure changes that form part of the reform unit. Of the $2.92 million, $898,331 is set aside for Innovation Unit consultant contract and additional funding for anticipated consultancy for the next phases of the reform process. Mr. Chairman, under Program 1601, Business Unit 26080, $630,000 has been budgeted for external grants and the Bermuda College Promise Merit Award Program, a minor increase of $22,000. Mr. Speaker, in awarding grants to external agencies, the ministry will continue to support programs and services which directly help students improve their academic, social, and behavioral skills to achieve success. Mr. Chairman, of the $630,000, $450,000 has been set aside to fund the merit-based College Promise program. These funds are awarded to public school graduates with GPAs of 3.0 or higher to allow them to attend Bermuda College tuition-free. Mr. Chairman, $1,379,000 has been set aside in Business Unit 26090 for the administration of the ministry's annual scholarship and awards program. The ministry will continue to support students in the pursuit of tertiary level education. The The reduction of $36,000 is directly related to a one-time grant last year of $17,000 for guard rating teacher standards, and the balance was repurposed for travel for within the education reform unit. Mr. Chairman, last year, the ministry received a total of 452 student application submissions. This reflected a decrease of 65 applications compared to the 517 received last year. The last fiscal year, the ministry has distributed awards as follows: 2 Bermuda Government Scholarships, 2 Non-Traditional Student Awards, 49 Further Education Awards, and the Minister's Awards comprised of 2 Minister's Achievement Awards, 1 Applied Science Scholarship, 1 Exceptional Student Award, 1 Technical and Vocational Award, and 6 Bermuda College Book Awards. There are also 3 Teacher Training Awards issued as well. Mr. Chairman, these awards enable students to obtain education they may not have had access to otherwise. Mr. Chairman, on B-128, the subjective analysis of current account estimates are shown for the Ministry of Education headquarters. Line 1 salaries stand at $618,000 and show a minimal decrease of $2,000 when compared to last year. The travel expenditure line item of $48,000 increased by $24,000, while expenditure for grants and contributions decreased by $13,000. The full breakdown of the $1,175,000 budgeted for grants and contributions can be found on page C-18 of the budget book. Mr. Chairman, the increase in travel expenditure reflects monies budgeted for the annual UK Education World Forum and overseas meetings that have been skipped over the last few years due to COVID restrictions. The increase of $53,000 for materials and supplies is directly related to the operations of the new Educational Reform Unit. Mr. Chairman, $4 million has been budgeted for professional services. This reflects an increase of $1,394,000. These additional monies have been allocated to continue the consultancy work for education reform. Mr. Chairman, on page B-128, the number of full-time equivalents or employees in the Ministry of Education headquarters remained the same as last year at 6. Mr. Chairman, finally, on page B-129, performance measures for the ministry headquarters are outlined. The targeted outcomes for last year were either achieved or in the process of being completed by the end of March this year. I pause to point out on the target outcomes for 2023 that is published that 1 additional signature program will be introduced in 2023 is incorrect. The information for output measures was submitted before the decision was made to delay the opening of the 3rd signature school program to 2024 instead of 2023. Mr. Chairman, the ministry team comprises of the permanent secretary, our senior policy analyst, the ministry controller, scholarships and awards program manager, a relief policy analyst, administrative staff, accounts officer, and the executive assistant to the minister and permanent secretary. Mr. Chairman, each team member has contributed to the success of the ministry's work programs, and I extend my sincere thanks to the ministry headquarters team and the Education Reform Units team and working groups for their continued support and diligence. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my presentation for the budget for the Ministry of Education headquarters.
Thank you, Minister. Please continue when you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, I now present the budget for Head 17, the Department of Education. Mr. Chairman, it was 3 years ago today, on March 13th, 2020, that the World Gazette published an article stating that the international organization, Innovation Unit Australia New Zealand, had been selected to help rebuild the Bermuda public education system. Mr. Chairman, that article also included a statement. Innovation Unit has emphasized that Bermudians are the guardians of the vision for the Bermuda public school system. Mr. Chairman, that remains true today. Mr. Chairman, 3 years ago, I underscored that we as Bermudians will take ownership of transforming our public education system, and that Bermudians will design our transformed education system via consultation with stakeholder groups, so that we can create a system that is right for Bermuda and not something that has just been transplanted here from somewhere else. Mr. Chairman, the work that has been carried out over the past 3 years has remained true to what was stated 3 years ago. Mr. Chairman, over the past 3 years, we have continued to consult and engage students, parents, young people, school staff, school leaders, community and business partners, Department of Education officers, and government departments. We have also committed to progressing with education reform in phases. This allows us to learn from the previous phases as we continue to reform our public education system. I, as well as all of Bermuda, can be encouraged by this course of development as we head into the parish primary school phase of reform. The establishment of the Education Reform Unit, as discussed in the budget brief for Head 16, and the full support of the Commissioner and her team at the Department of Education has been key to the progress of the education reform agenda. Mr. Chairman, we have engaged in the work of education reform. We have remained true to the vision that we have for our students as outlined on page B130, and that is all students are educated to lead personally and professionally, contribute locally, and compete globally. Mr. Chairman, now in our 3rd year of education reform, we are confident that the work is being undertaken by our staff, community members, and change partners will enable us to achieve the department's objectives outlined on page B130. That is 1, increase academic rigor and student engagement. 2, ensure career and college workforce readiness. 3, enhance the quality of teacher practice and system leadership. 4, improve the infrastructure and instructional resources. And 5, ensure system success. Mr. Chairman, page 133 shows that a total of $114,872,000 has been allocated to the Department of Education for fiscal year 23-24. Mr. Chairman, this is $2,544,000 more than 22-23. The main contributing factor for the increase is the need to fund education reform activities, such as $1,659,000 for the new parish primary schools at Francis Patton and Purvis Primary for September 2023, and $864,000 to bolster $65,000 to bolster the substitute budget. Program 1701, Central Administration. Mr. Chairman, I begin with the analysis of the central administration, which can be found on page B131. Mr. Chairman, monies budgeted for the upcoming year for Business Unit 27000, General Administration, will cover the cost for inventory purchases for additional education supplies for the school year. Mr. Chairman, there's a minor decrease of $23,000 budgeted in expenditure for the fiscal year due to the reduction of COVID-19 related expenses. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27001 holds the budget for the Office of the Commissioner and primarily funds the salaries of the Commissioner of Education and 2 direct reports, the Director of Academics and the Director of Educational Standards. The Commissioner of Education and direct reports are responsible for the strategic planning, leading, overseeing, monitoring, and auditing staff work and holding the staff of the department and schools accountable for carrying out their duties and responsibilities. Mr. Chairman, this year a total of $398,000, which represents a significant decrease from last year by $631,000. This decrease represents a reallocation of funding for the education reform to the newly reformed unit and expenditure efficiencies. Mr. Chairman, the Executive Leadership Team, or ELT, supports the work of education reform when necessary. Mr. Chairman, last year, the ELT contributed to reform efforts by participating in status update meetings with our change partners, reviewing and providing feedback on design briefs and documents developed by the schools and school transformation teams, providing feedback for stage gate reviews, participating in system conditions working groups and supporting school transformation teams and other working groups. One director was reassigned to serve as the chair of the governance team while simultaneously serving as a member of the Learning First program from its inception until there was a restructuring of the governance team and Learning First program. Mr. Chairman, last school year, through the then Learning First program, there were 2 transformation teams in place with numerous working groups who dedicated their efforts to preparing for the opening of the first signature learning programs at the Barclay Institute and Cedar Bridge Academy, which had their historical opening in September 2022. Mr. Chairman, I attended both openings and observed with tremendous joy the S1 students being clapped in on their first day of school. Mr. Chairman, last year's senior officers also served as members of one of the 6 system conditioning transformation teams working to create the enabling conditions for student success to sustain the outputs of education reform. These were 1, graduation and credentialing, 2, curriculum, 3, teaching and learning, 4, partnerships with industry and community, 5, partners as educators, and 6, professional learning. Mr. Chairman, Department of Education officers contribute to the co-development of materials to support the system-wide adoption of a new pedagogical framework, Bermuda's Model for Deep Learning, to guide and support teaching and learning in signature learning programs. Mr. Chairman, officers also assisted with the development of an assessment policy to help to finalize and implement the process for forming and developing effective learning partnerships for SLPs with business, community, and research organizations and with government departments. Other Department of Education officers worked with our Change Partners Innovation Unit and selected school leaders and staff to co-create the resources and processes required to recruit, credential, and support teachers to deliver signature learning programs, to develop a new advisory curriculum, as well as statements and criteria for inclusivity that guided the work of our teams. Mr. Chairman, officers also contributed to the development of new graduation requirements for the current S1 students, finalizing and implementing a learner profile and developing the rubric and procedures for the learning portfolio, a key element in the new graduation requirements. Mr. Speaker, for 2022-23 academic year, 5 school transformation teams are in place. In addition to numerous other working groups which are carrying out work to progress, transform, and redesign the Bermuda public education system for Bermuda's children. There will also be system conditioning teams in place. Mr. Chairman, the 5 school transformation teams include teams for the Barkley Institute, Cedar Bridge Academy, Francis Patton Primary, Purvis Primary, and the new signature for hospitality and tourism and educational services that will open at Sands Secondary Middle School site in September 2024. Mr. Chairman, in addition, there are many department and school staff serving on over 20 working groups and other staff carrying out the work in support of these school transformation teams, system condition teams, and working groups. Mr. Chairman, the Office of the Commissioner also funds a communication consultant. The department has developed a comprehensive framework for systematic, interactive, and authentic communication and engagement. And at the heart of this framework is a strategic communications plan underpinned by research and evaluation. Mr. Chairman, school communities will be invited to support the department's communication priorities and objectives while developing strategic communication plans for their needs. Mr. Chairman, some elements of the framework are already in place, and a series of workshops this academic year will build capacity and orient school leaders and key personnel to the framework before full implementation. Mr. Chair, we continue to maintain 3 newsletters to keep our stakeholder groups informed. 1, The Scoop, targeted at public school families. 2, BPS Matters, targeted at public school staff, and The Link Express, targeted at all department education staff. Mr. Chairman, a total of 97 newsletters were sent out for 21-22, and newsletter audiences are given the opportunity to communicate directly with the Commissioner's office through mini surveys and a link in the BPSS family feedback form embedded in each mailing. A 4th newsletter is to be added this academic year called Best Practice, a vehicle for teacher leaders. Mr. Speaker, the BPSS family feedback form remains open to all stakeholders 24/7, including members of the general public, to submit questions, comments, suggestions, and complaints. Over the last year, there have been 72 such submissions, considerably down from its inaugural year. Mr. Chairman, the department also developed a social media program aimed at engaging the community and BPSS family in classroom and extracurricular activities. A new social media takeover program has met with considerable success and is now in its 2nd term of implementation. Each school has an opportunity to celebrate its students, staff, and programs, or school, at least twice a term on the district Facebook and Instagram pages. Mr. Chairman, the communication consultant is also a member of the Education Reform Communications an engagement working group. And this is to ensure that the Department and Education Reform Unit work is coordinated and aligned with the messaging sent out by the Department of Education to parents and BPSS staff. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27030, Human Resources, has been allocated a total of $715,000 to fund the salaries of technical and administrative staff, expenses to advertise and recruit staff, and monies for annual long service award to teachers. There's an increase of $215,000 over fiscal year 22-23 due to an increase in the cost of long service awards. Mr. Chairman, in 23-24, funding for Business Unit 27031, Staff Development, decreased minimally from the previous year's budget to $672,000. These funds will be used to fund training and professional learning to enhance the skills and competencies of our teachers, education staff, school leaders, and Department of Education staff. Mr. Speaker, our educators have engaged in professional learning focused on changes that have come as a result of education reform. In June 2022, in preparation for this school year, all primary and middle schools, Dame and Success Academy, Roberts Avenue, participated in professional learning activities that afforded them the opportunities to take a deep dive into: one, high-impact teaching strategies. These are strategies that increase learning when they are applied and used consistently. Two, the BPSS Legit Pedagogical Model. This is a teaching model based on deep learning principles, evidence-based strategies proven to have a positive impact on student learning, how to use effective feedback, and total participation techniques. Three, the BPSS Legit Lesson Plan, a new system-wide framework that is to be used for planning for teaching and learning, which includes the high-impact teaching strategy and the Legit Pedagogical Model. The BPSS Legit Action Learning Framework. This is an inquiry process by which educators come together in teams to identify a problem of practice, learn about and try out evidence-based approaches to address their problem, and to evaluate and reflect on the outcomes to improve teaching and learning in their schools. Mr. Chairman, school principals are also engage staff around these practices throughout the year on designated site-based professional learning days. Mr. Chairman, coordinated by our education reform teams and innovation unit, the school transformation teams for Francis Patton Primary and Purvis Primary, and the Signature School for Hospitality and Tourism and Educational Services participated in the following professional learning activities in June 2022 as part of the school transformation process. 1, design mindsets. 2, user research and introduction to synthesis. 3, insight generation. 4, case for change. 5, vision for learning. 6, mapping existing practices. 7, curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. 8, technology. 9, time and space. 10, culture, relationship, and professional learning. And 11, educators for the future. Mr. Chairman, on June 2022, amongst other activities, our senior schools, which were doing their final preparations for the opening of the first signature learning programs, participated in 1, complete the pacing guides for the S1 curriculum. 2, layering appropriate assignments and pedagogical practices. And 3, identifying experiential opportunities across S1. Mr. Chairman, it is also important to note that the process of school redesign is structured so that staff who are members of system transformation teams and working groups learn and grow and develop as a result of the professional learning activities and the work that is being carried out. Mr. Chair, the learning and development of capabilities is incorporated in the structure of school redesign process. Mr. Chairman, our preschool leaders and preschool P1 and P2 teachers' professional learning activities focused on 1, SEEKS, social emotional engagement, knowledge and skills. CERTS, social communication, emotional regulation, and transactional support. Creative curriculum, kindergarten, or CCK. Haggerty curriculum, reading. Project-based learning, social studies, science, and the arts. Inquiry learning and math mastery and play-based math. Mr. Chairman, there have also been system-wide professional learning activities throughout the year focused on the Cambridge curriculum, subject-based professional learning for teachers of on-core subjects, and personalized professional learning for student services staff. Mr. Chairman, a workshop was also held in October with Dr. Yep Bar Ben-Yar, one of the world's leading experts in professional development for teachers in Singapore and mathematics, and again in October 22. I'm sorry, the first one was October 2021 and again in October 2022. Mr. Chairman, a math teacher certification program was also launched this year, along with a professional learning program for teacher leaders across our primary and middle schools. Mr. Chair, our substitute teachers also participate in site-based and system-wide professional development activities throughout the year, in addition to participating in an onboarding and orientation session at the start of the school year. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27090, Education Standards and Accountability, has oversight for our 18 primary schools, 4 middle schools, 2 senior secondary schools, and 1 special school, Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy. This team comprises of 3 assistant directors who supervise school principals to ensure effective leadership, quality teaching, quality services, and education and quality programs in our schools. Educational standards and accountability work is essential for the growth and development of school leaders for the school improvement. Mr. Chair, over the past year, educational standards and accountability assistant directors continue to support school principals. However, the work of education reform in the Bermuda public school system was and continues to be their priority. In April 2022, an announcement was made that Purvis Primary and Francis Patton would be the first of 10 parish primary schools to open under the reformed education system. And in June 2022, the system transformation teams for those primary schools were established, with 2 of the assistant directors designated at STT co-leads, along with the principals of each school. At the outset of the school transformation process for these schools, the school transformation teams engaged in 6 workshops, guiding them through developing blueprints for their respective schools. Mr. Chairman, following several iterations of the blueprint designs, the system transformation teams are progressing towards the implementation phase of parish primary schools. During this phase, the school transformation process during this phase of the school transformation process, the school transformation teams will focus on considerations also for the logistical components such as staffing, training, equipment, and curriculum. Also included in this phase is the transformation stage. Also included in this phase of the transformation process is the stage gate reviews. During the stage gate reviews, the system transformation teams present the prototypes of their blueprint statements to the Education Reform Governance Committee to determine what ethical, legal, political, fiscal, and regulatory processes are needed to be taken into consideration and addressed to also stress the tests of the desirability, feasibility, and viability of the blueprints. Mr. Chairman, the system transformation teams are still in this phase of the transformation process. Mr. Chairman, since 2020-2021 budget, the budget for Business Unit 27095 attendance was transferred into Business Unit 27090 to fund the salaries of 4 attendance officers and a school registration and attendance coordinator. It is the responsibility of this team to ensure that children of compulsory school age are in school on a daily basis. The school registration and attendance coordinator also oversees the annual school registration process for the enrollment of children in all public schools. Mr. Chairman, the funds allocated for this business unit, 27090, is $645,000 with a small increase of $2,000 over last year's budget. Mr. Chairman, substitute teachers ensure the continuity of teaching and learning services and programs when teachers or other school staff are sick or on leave. A total of $3,640,000 has been allocated for Business Unit 27160 substitutes. This is an increase by $804,000 to cover the cost of substitutes, including the provision of allocated substitutes for all school levels, substitutes for teachers engaged in work of education reform, and substitutes who are assigned to teacher absences throughout the year. Mr. Chairman, the overall budget for Central Administration Program is $6,743,000 for the 23-24 fiscal year, which is $407,000 higher than the previous year, primarily due to the increase in funding for substitutes. Program 1701, Student Services. Mr. Chairman, Program 1701, Student Services, facilitates the provision of 13 essential programs that directly provide services to meet the diverse needs of our students who have been identified as having exceptionalities or special needs. Business Unit 27061, Behavior Management, funds behavioral therapists for preschool and primary schools, as well as one education officer for behavioral management. In addition, the funding covers our 2 alternative education programs, which facilitate suitable alternative education environments and services for students with behavioral challenges. This business unit's 23-24 budget is $1,292,000. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27062 funds the operational costs of Success Academy, Roberts Avenue. These costs include costs for bespoke training and for the rental of equipment such as photocopiers and printers, office and educational supplies. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27063 includes our school psychologists who address student needs in the areas of academics, behavior, and mental health. Further, the school psychologists provide comprehensive psycho-educational evaluations, consultations, short-term counseling, interventions, and preventive services across the entire public school system. Mr. Chairman, school psychologists are engaged in and are a valuable resource for schools in relation to the MTSS process. And for those who don't know, MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered System of Support. Multi-tiered support system. A system priority. Mr. Chairman, MTSS is a multi-tiered system of supports that is proactive and preventative framework that integrates data and instruction to maximize student achievement and support students' social, emotional, and behavioral needs from a strengths-based perspective. Mr. Chairman, through the MTSS process, a school-based multidisciplinary team meets weekly or bi-weekly to discuss the needs of students and suggest interventions and resources to address concerns. The school psychologists, as participating in the MTSS teams, collaborate with staff to ensure that students have the necessary support, including partnering with specialist human resources from within the public school system and the wider community. Recommendations for bespoke interventions are made through consultation with the MTSS framework and using data derived from psychoeducational assessments carried out by school psychologists. Mr. Chairman, I am pleased to report that as of September 2022, the department has a full complement of school psychologists. Mr. Chairman, I am also pleased to report that our school psychologists have integrated technology into psychoeducational assessments through the use of Q interactive software, which is enabling them to conduct assessments in a more efficient and cost-effective manner. Mr. Chairman, in the new fiscal year, school psychologists will continue to manage their assessment referrals and provide consultation to school staff to ensure the delivery of services before and after psychoeducational assessments. Mr. Chairman, the 2023-24 budget for Business Unit 27063 school psychologists is $930,000, with a minimal decrease from last year. Mr. Chairman, $304,000 is budgeted for Business Unit 27064 Adaptive Physical Education. The Adaptive Physical Education, or APE program, is a developmentally appropriate physical education program which provides students on IEPs, and for those who don't know what IEPs stand for, that's individual education plans, with physical education services to meet their unique needs. Mr. Chairman, 3 specialist male teachers deliver the adapted PE program for the Bermuda Public School System. These teachers provide services to students with diverse physical needs by providing the adaptive support necessary to enable students to be included in their respective schools' regular physical education program. Mr. Speaker, students receiving adapted physical education services also have IEPs with goals and objectives which are in line with regular physical education curriculum. Mr. Chairman, the specialist team also organizes the annual Department of Education Adapted Physical Education National Track and Field Invitational. This invitational includes students from primary 1 to senior 4 who have special physical needs and receive adaptive physical educational services, as well as former students who have transitioned out of the Bermuda Public School System and are presently at K. Margaret Carter Center and other facilities. Mr. Chairman, the feedback from this event being reinstated in 21-22 was very positive, and we will now revert to holding this event annually with COVID restrictions now removed. Mr. Chairman, $289,000 is budgeted for Business Unit 27065, the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Program, which employs specialist teachers who provide students with academic instruction. These teachers collaborate with classroom teachers to ensure that teaching and learning is effective and that students' needs are met during the instruction in the regular classroom. Mr. Chairman, the monies budgeted for this business unit are for salaries, disability-specific resources and materials, hearing aids and equipment, professional development, and consultant audiology services. Mr. Chairman, teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing are preparing for the expansion of the teaching of sign language at the middle and senior school levels. The teachers also designating time to collaborate with paraprofessionals before and after their sessions are held with students with the aim of educating administrative staff on the specific needs of persons who are deaf or hard of hearing. Mr. Chairman, the Vision Business Unit 27066 has been allocated a budget of $106,000. Students with visual impairments have unique educational needs. In order to meet their unique needs, students must have specialized services, books, materials in appropriate media, including Braille, as well as specialized equipment and technology to ensure equal access to the core and specialized curricula, and to enable them to function and compete with their peers in school most effectively and ultimately in society. Mr. Chairman, the students were also introduced to the new vision rehabilitation therapist at Vision Bermuda at the beginning of the academic year. Unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions and renovations at Beacon House, the students could not participate in independent learning skills, assistive technology, and orientation and mobility training. However, under a hybrid instructional method, Zoom and in-person, students were engaged through limited contact in-person community activities on independent living and career education through gardening and job shadowing. Mr. Chairman, our students maintained a garden and shared the produce with school staff and neighbors. In addition, one student completed a job shadowing program at Port Royal Golf Club, which subsequently led to summer employment at Ocean View Golf Course. Mr. Chairman, presently, one vision teacher supports 11 students with visual impairments. In addition to carrying out their duties, the teacher also provides professional development to school staff and paraeducators who work directly with the students. As a result, the paraeducators have completed additional expanded core curriculum courses, primarily in the areas of independent living and orientation and mobility course trainings to meet the needs of our students. Mr. Chair, our teacher for the visually impaired is also assisting with developing Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy's community support program. Mr. Chair, the Business Unit 27071 Office Support has been allocated a budget of $641,000. This business unit serves as the secretariat for the Student Services section and funds the salaries of 1 Assistant Director of Student Services, 2 Administrative Assistants, and 4 Learning Support Teachers who provide services to students with special needs. Mr. Chairman, the Counseling Program Business Unit 27072 is a comprehensive development school counseling program based on an international model with 4 components: classroom guidance, core curriculum, individual planning, responsive services, and system support. The comprehensive developmental school counseling program has an integral part to play in supporting students' academic, personal, social, and emotional and career success, with a focus on providing and supporting a myriad of protective factors for all students and coordinating services with all other school professionals and community service providers. Mr. Chairman, research has supported the position that transformed school counseling programs. The research has supported the position that transformed school counseling programs are preventative, developmental, and integral within the school's educational mission and led by school counselors who utilize their many talents and skills. Some researchers suggest that when students participate in a developmental school counseling program, there is more counseling interaction with program stakeholders. Students have higher academic achievement and they are better prepared for the future. Many children reporting that they feel most comfortable receiving health-related services at school, and a majority of those accessing mental health services do so through their school. School-based mental health services, such as school counseling, prove to be an effective component of prevention and intervention services. Mr. Chairman, this business unit funds the salary of an education officer for counseling, 16 school counselors who serve as pre and primary students, 9 school counselors who serve as middle school students, and 1 alternative school counselor. Mr. Chairman, $3,037,000 has been budgeted for this business unit. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27074, Learning Support, funds 3 education officers for special education and learning support, in addition to 37 learning support teachers who provide special education services at our preschools, primary and middle schools, and Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy, and for trauma responsive programs at our primary, middle, and senior success academies. This funding also includes assessment materials to ensure the appropriate diagnosis of students for special needs education. Mr. Chairman, professional development has continued to ensure that school team process in alignment with the response to intervention process, a component of the multi-tiered system of support, MTS, framework. Mr. Chairman, learning support teachers have been provided with ongoing professional learning on the school team process, pre-referral intervention process, individual education plans, planning and audits, intervention learning plans, dyslexia, ADHD, and identifying key components with behavior. Learning support teachers were also presented with IEP implementation and documentation methods in order to collect data for IEPs and LIPs accurately. Professional development was provided for school staff that focused on children's instructional, behavioral, and development and environmental needs. Mr. Chairman, ongoing professional development has also continued for our paraeducators on how to support students' learning, behavioral, and personal goals under the guidance of the Curriculum and Assessment Division. Education officers completed all access arrangements and exemption requests to schools that were required for the administration of the Cambridge Checkpoint Assessments and the IGCSE exams. Access arrangements may include the provision of more time for students to take exams, for example, those who have dyslexia or ADHD. Mr. Chairman, this business unit has increased by $23,000 for much needed learning support services. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27076, Early Childhood Education, has been allocated $114,000 and reflects the funding for the salary of the Education Officer for Early Child Education. Mr. Chairman, the budget for Business Unit 27079, Paraprofessionals, increased by $54,000 with a budget allocation of $7,642,000. This business unit provides for the delivery of paraprofessional and educational therapist assistance services for our students with diverse learning needs. The paraprofessionals and education therapist assistants provide instructional support to teachers, ensure protection and safety, and provide support for transition and life skills for students with special needs. This includes providing adequate support for students with physical exceptionalities, including those who are deaf or hard of hearing and those who are visually impaired. Mr. Chairman, the Business Unit 27083, Autism Spectrum Disorder, or ASD, is allocated $681,000 to fund salaries for teachers and those paraprofessionals that serve students with autism within the ASD programs at 3 primary schools, 1 middle school, and 1 senior school. Mr. Chairman, current projections indicate that we will need to increase our ASD offerings over the next few years at the primary level. In the past couple of years, we've had students who have participated in blended programs where they joined their peers and identified classes with the intention of transitioning them into general education classes with or without support. During the 22-23 school year, 5 students are participating in such programs. As our need for additional ASD classes increase, we need to consider and create additional functional skills classes at the primary level. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27084, Alternative Education Fund Success Academy, Roberts Avenue, the alternative support program for middle school and senior school level students. Currently, Success Academy, Roberts Avenue services 5 students, 3 senior school students and 2 middle school students, with the goal of assisting them in acquiring placement or replacement behaviors that will lead to reintegration into the mainstream middle school environment or transition to senior school, or GED preparation or Penn Foster programming. Mr. Chairman, short-term, 4 weeks or less, respite support for middle school students remains in place. There's also been a recent request for placement of students on out-of-school suspension to attend Success Academy. A separate program inclusive of location and operational costs is being explored to address these specific needs. Mr. Chairman, this business unit also funds students who are in alternative education programs across the island. We currently have 8 students in alternative placements, 1 at Impact Mentoring Academy, 1 at Christian Lighthouse Academy, and 2 females and 1 male at TLC. Mr. Chairman, the adult education has begun resumption of services. We have 2 males slated to attend and another 2 students waiting for placement. This will take the alternative placement population to 12 students, 10 males and 2 females. Mr. Chairman, educational therapist assistants, and other members of the multi-tiered system of support school teams continue to provide Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 support for students in our schools who have behavioral challenges. These supports range from classroom monitoring and consultation to caseload administration, as well as 1, daily tracking schedules, 2, developing individual crisis management plans, 3, implementation of behavior intervention strategies, and 4, developing functional behavior plans and anti-behavioral intervention plans. Unfortunately, Tier 3 behaviors at the primary school continue to increase. Mr. Chairman, we are pleased that partnerships have been strengthened with supporting agencies such as the Development of Child and Family Services, DCFS, and Child Adolescent Services, CAS, Probation Services, and Department of Health. One example of this is reflected in the monthly meetings of the High Risk Intervention Committee, which mutual clients and their specific unique needs are discussed and support is actioned. We continue to support with the educational therapists at CAS, which has helped bridge the gap with the continuity of services that we provide students. Mr. Chairman, ETs, educational therapists, and ETAs, educational therapists, assistants, have continued to incorporate the FAB, Functional Behavior Assessment, to behavior intervention plans, specialist training to produce the FABs and the BIPs across all levels. These are created for all Tier 3 students. There are presently 33 students who require Tier 3 support. Mr. Chairman, for the 23-24 year, ETs and ETAs will increase the level of support they provide to classroom teachers and will work to improve the planning and monitoring of student progress. This will be accomplished by creating collaborative intervention plans, tracking replacement behaviors, and ensuring success with stakeholders using MTSS. They will utilize a whole child lens and integrate academics and behavior, implementing a data-driven technological support system, and will support this collaboration and problem solving amongst the MTSS team. Mr. Chairman, Kickboard was piloted in 8 of our school environments. Kickboard is a total end-to-end behavior solution that helps districts and schools drive climate and culture initiatives. This enables educators to input and analyze the full range of student behaviors and interactions in real time. This tool also provides real-time assessment and progress monitoring of social emotional learning and the effectiveness of school climate initiatives like positive behavior intervention support, response to intervention, and MTSS, multi-tiered system of support, providing much needed behavioral insights into students' everyday experiences at school and the quality of their interactions with others. A plan is being developed to implement Kickboard in the rest of our schools. Mr. Chairman, the Student Services section provides an extensive range of educational services to our students with exceptionalities. The total budget allocation for this business unit for 23-24 is $20,660,000.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Before you come on to Finance and Corporate, perhaps it's a convenient moment just to pause and remind the listening public that we are in the Committee of Supply for further consideration of revenue and expenditures for the year 2023-2024. This is the debate on the Ministry of Education, covering heads 16, 17, 18, and 41. You are currently hearing from the Honorable Minister of Education, Minister Rebane, who is speaking to head 17, the Department of Education. For those following the budget book, that is at page B131, and the minister has just finished Business Unit 1702 and is coming on to Business Unit, I presume is coming on to Business Unit 1703. Minister, please proceed. You have 4 hours left in the debate, which concludes at 5:25 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad that you are following me as well. Program 1703, Finance and Corporate. Mr. Chair, continuing on page B131, Finance and Corporate Services, Business Unit 27002 funds staff in the Finance Administration section with a budget of $762,000. This team includes a department comptroller, trainee department comptroller, finance services manager, a payment supervisor, a salaries clerk, 3 accounts clerks, and a messenger. This section is responsible for providing 1, financial advice to senior management, 2, cost-effective and responsive financial services, 3, procurement and contracting services, and 4, corporate planning solutions for management, employees, and schools. Under the direction of the department's comptroller, the team coordinates the payment of salaries of over 1,000 educators and department staff, pays all suppliers and vendors for goods and services purchased, and organizes the collection of receivables. This section also plays a key role in reducing non-instructional costs and identifying cost inefficiencies. During the past year, the comptroller has contributed to the efforts of education reform by providing financial reports for the Education Reform Unit's Budgeting and Resource Working Group. Mr. Chairman, Office Accommodation Business Unit 27003 has a budget of $1,080,000 that funds the salary of the office receptionist, covers the cost of annual rent, office maintenance, and electricity and communication costs for the department's physical offices at 44 Church Street. Additional funding of $127,000 has been provided for office spaces for IT, facilities, and student services team to be located together at some point in the future. Business Unit 27040, Education Stores, was allocated a budget of $720,000, which supports the salaries of 6 staff and other expenditures such as rent, inventory, freight costs, and gas and diesel. The stores section provides centralized purchasing and inventory management and distribution services for all public schools, Bermuda College, and other government departments such as Department of Youth, Sport, and Recreation. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27041, School Transportation, is allocated a budget of $438,000 and funds the salaries of 3 bus drivers, a bus attendant to transport students who attend Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy safely, and for students in the ASD program at other schools. 2 groundsmen who maintain school sports fields, and 1 laborer. Transportation and safety officers are also funded from this budget. This budget enables transport services for our most vulnerable population of children. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27040, Building, Grounds, and Equipment, is budgeted at $1,334,000, a decrease of $139,000. These funds enable the facilities manager to provide planned preventative and daily maintenance to all public school buildings, grounds, and equipment, ensuring a healthy, safe learning environment. This includes the monthly maintenance of all life safety equipment, fire alarm, elevator inspections, burglar alarm systems, drinking water fountains, water tank cleaning, chlorination, air conditioning maintenance, supplying custodian cleaning supplies, cleaning company services, uniforms, and health safety inspections. Maintenance tasks Electrical, plumbing, masonry, carpentry, painting, and other air conditionings are scheduled for planned, preventative, and daily works. Pest control services are provided in all schools as a health safety measure. Additionally, this budget funds manned security services for all middle schools for the safety of our students and staff. Mr. Chairman, funding in 23-24 will be used for: one, Francis Patton and Purvis Primary will open in September 2023 as parish primary schools. Dedicated work has been carried out for education reform and will continue to be carried out to advance our education reform agenda and to achieve the vision for learning for children. Two, enhancements in Department of Education school infrastructure, removal of asbestos vinyl flooring, upgraded with environmentally friendly non-wax, non-skid flooring. Two, enhancements in school bell systems, removal of analog systems, upgraded to digital systems with battery backup, program for school breaks and automatic changes as it relates to daylight saving. Enhancements to school air conditioning systems, continuing the installation of ultraviolet lights that kill mold spores, viruses, bacteria, and fungus. Playground updates, the installation of 2 American Disability Act compliant playgrounds, ensuring equal access and benefit for all students. 6, fire alarm upgrades, replacing non-addressable systems with fully addressable systems that allow the department to monitor and address emergencies efficiently with the ability to identify the precise location of any and all alarms. And 7, security camera upgrades, installation of LED infrared camera systems that give us the ability to monitor schools 24/7, day and night. All events can be stored in case of malicious events, allowing data to be retrieved by law enforcement on request. Mr. Chairman, the budget priorities for this business unit in 23-24 include ensuring all maintenance tasks for Francis Patton Primary and Purvis Primary are carried out in desired timelines, ensuring facility staff continue to train at Bermuda College and supporting all team members with enrolling and participating with supplementing their requirements that relates to our safety and health, environmentally safe cleaning products, addressing all health and safety requests as a matter of priority by following up with relevant parties and ensuring stakeholders are updated throughout the process. And lastly, carrying out cleanliness inspections throughout public schools to have all schools consistently maintain a high level of cleanliness throughout the school year. Mr. Chairman, the final business unit 27050 information technology is funded for $2,603,000. This business unit funds the salaries of an IT manager and a computer services officer, a management systems officer, and technical and assistant technical officers. Mr. Chairman, the IT section is accountable for defining and delivering IT strategy and capabilities for the Ministry of Education, Department of Education, and the Bermuda Public School System. This includes data analytics and business intelligence, development and support, infrastructure, security and technical services to support and enhance user experiences. The IT section is responsible for directing IT and business leaders on strategy, standards, and opportunities for shared services and economies of scale. Mr. Chairman, the IT section is responsible for providing the following IT services to Ministry and Department of Education and the BPSS. Design, plan, implement, and maintain the computing infrastructure, support education initiatives, student learning and instruction, and business applications. Metrics for managing IT effectiveness and measuring technology's impact on learning and instruction. Ensuring service levels and operational processes are in place to meet KPIs to ensure learning and instruction schedules. Maintaining oversight on all IT projects and ensuring that commitments are properly planned, staffed, monitored, and reported. Comprehensive enterprise information security programs to ensure the integrity and confidentiality and availability of relevant data. Enterprise-wide disaster recovery and business continuity plans. Enforcing IT policies and procedures. Reviewing, recommending, and overseeing all vendors and managing service agreements for computing, telecommunications, IT services, and equipment. Mr. Chairman, the IT section achieved the following in the last fiscal year. BPS Chromebooks, as BPS primary school Chromebooks. As of September 2022, all BPS primary students have been assigned a Chromebook. Efforts continue to complete device assignments for middle school students. Telephone system had major enhancements and improvements at Paget Primary School that included high availability hardware and software and voicemail service upgrades. Data center service environments. The entire data center server platform was upgraded in August 2022. The result is an increase to the processing ability of the of all IT services with a minimum of 100%. This upgraded computing environment provides a framework for additional education and learning services. Wi-Fi enhancements in preschool, primary school, and middle schools were carried out, with the current Wi-Fi network installed in all BPS preschool, middle schools, primary schools, the Education Reform Unit, Child Development Program, and other Department of Education locations. Laptops configured and distributed to BPSS user communities. Signature Learning Program application implementation. Implementation of enhanced IT security services and IT security, and implementation of online services. Mr. Chair, the IT priorities for 23-24 include IT support, continuing IT support of Education Reform Unit, parish primary schools, and the Signature Learning Programs. Start up the transformation of IT support personnel from break fix to providing education solution support. Continuing distributing Chromebooks to students and laptops within the Ministry of Education, Department of Education, and the BPSS communities to assign a device to every BPSS student and to increase the posture of a mobile workforce. Mature IT operations processes and monitoring tools with the continued improvement of service delivery, IT security, and service desk processes. This includes the introduction of additional monitoring and alerting tools to manage and monitor IT services. Mature the use and configuration of the PowerSchool ecosystem. The BPSS must implement steps to fast track the total adoption and full integration of all purchased PowerSchool application modules. Training and internal business processes must be amended to work with and enforce the PowerSchool data. Upgrade the data center core switching platform. This enterprise network switching environment will be upgraded to be compatible with the new and improved server and computing environments. This will eliminate bottlenecks and delays in the delivery of DOT IT services. Upgrade of remote access services with the implementation of an advanced remote access environment with updated security protocols. Mr. Chairman, in summary, the Finance and Corporate section provides key services and support to our public schools and has been allocated $6,937,000 for the 23-24 fiscal year. Program 1704, preschools. Mr. Chairman, I now turn to B132, line item 1704, which is the program for our 10 preschools. The 23-24 budget for all preschools is $4,751,000. 93% of the preschool's budget funds salaries. 7% of the budget is used for resources, training, and development and operational costs such as electricity, part-time cleaners, phones, office equipment, rental, and drinking water. Mr. Chairman, this cohort of preschool students have lived more of their life in the COVID pandemic world with many regulations and restrictions that would not have been if not for the pandemic. Much of the focus for preschoolers entering this year has been socio-emotional development and self-regulation now that they are free to play with each other and engage in group learning. Preschool leaders and teachers have been working to recreate inquiry learning environments and learning experiences. Preschoolers learn through investigation and exploration, facilitated by studying various topics. Teachers also balance student-led learning and teacher-facilitated learning in intentional teaching in math, literacy, and language. Teachers observe student progress and document their progress across a continuum which is appropriate for their stage and age development. Mr. Chairman, during the 23-24 fiscal year, the aim is to increase our students' access to early interventions. Program 1705, primary schools. Mr. Chairman, continuing on page B132, Program 1705 Primary Schools has a budget allocation of $29,692,000 allocated for the operational costs of our 18 primary schools. Mr. Chairman, the increase of $1.5 million over the previous year is due to the anticipated increase in Francis Patton of $918,000 and Purvis Primary of $741,000, which will both of which will open in September 2023 as a parish primary school. Mr. Chairman, I pause to thank and commend the co-leads and members of the school transformation teams for Francis Patton Primary and Purvis Primary Department of Education officers and the Education Reform Unit staff for all of their hard work in preparing for the opening of these two parish primary schools. Program 1706 Special Schools. Mr. Chairman, continuing on page B132, Program 1706 Business Unit 27120, Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy, or DAME as we call her, provides dedicated services to students who have severe to profound and multiple challenges, therefore special needs. The main focus of the program at DAME is to provide students with enriching educational and development support to increase the student independence and to help them achieve their ultimate potential. Mr. Chairman, a total of $659,000 has been allocated for DAME, an increase of $42,000 over the last fiscal year. Program 1707 Middle Schools. Mr. Chairman, we now turn to page B133 for Program 1707, our middle schools. The total 23-24 budget allocation for the operation of our 4 middle schools is $14,838,000, with a minor increase of $140,000. Program 1709 Senior Schools. Mr. Chairman, continuing on page B133, Program 1708 refers to our two senior secondary schools, the Barclay Institute and Cedar Bridge Academy. Mr. Chairman, each senior school is provided with an annual grant for the operational management of their respective school and school curriculum for the fiscal year 2023-24. The Cedar Bridge Academy's funding increased by $287,000, and the budget for Barclay Institute remains the same as the previous year. Mr. Chairman, students at the senior level continue to benefit from a diverse local and international curricula and programs which prepare them for post-secondary education, training, and careers. Students also have the opportunity to take advanced level courses and participate in dual enrollment programs at the Bermuda College. Mr. Chairman, I pause once again to extend commendations and applaud the boards, teachers, staff, and school transformation teams of the Barclay Institute and Cedar Bridge Academy for their commitment to and dedicated efforts to ensure the opening of Bermuda's first 2 senior schools with signature learning programs. Mr. Chairman, the signature learning pathways include the Barclay Institute, Health and Social Care Signature with the learning programs in general health and social care, holistic and allied health services, medical services, medical sciences and services, social sciences and services. Under the financial and insurance services signature, we have accounting, banking, and financial services, business administration and management, fintech, and insurance. At Cedar Bridge Academy, under the STEM signature, we have animal and vet sciences, computer science, creative technologies, engineering, and environmental sciences. And under the trades and professions signatures, we have automotive, carpentry, cosmetology, culinary arts and hospitality, electrical, horticulture, textiles, and design. Program 1709 Curriculum Assessment. Mr. Chairman, staying on page B133, Program 1709 Curriculum Assessment funds Cambridge International Curriculum, City and Guilds, Penn Foster, system-wide reading assessments, the career pathways, dual enrollment, and all curricular resource deliverables. The Department of Education pays an annual fee to Cambridge International for their curriculum for the primary 6 and middle 3 students to sit the annual checkpoint diagnostic assessments, along with International General Certificate Secondary Education. I've never actually seen that spelled out. IGCSE examinations. International General Certificate Secondary Education. IGCSE is what we normally say. Examinations required to obtain the Bermuda School Diploma or BSD. Mr. Chairman, we are now in our 10th year of administering Cambridge assessments and examinations. All Cambridge assessments, inclusive of reading assessments, are funded from Business Unit 27020, Assessment and Evaluation. The allocated budget for the allocated budget for the continued and effective delivery of assessment and evaluation is the sum total of $350,000. Mr. Chairman, curriculum, resources, professional development, training for mathematics intervention, language arts, science, social studies, foreign language, the arts, ICT, and physical education and health curricular deliverables are funded by Business Unit 27520, Design, Development, and Implementation. Mr. Chairman, the Education Officer for Foreign Languages laid the groundwork for presenting foreign languages in preschools this year. An online platform called Little Pim was selected, and teaching has started by teachers in 3 preschools, Warwick, Southampton, and Lagoon Park. Students will be exposed to 2 languages, Spanish and Portuguese. The foreign language officer is also working with the curriculum team for P1 and P7 for the parish primary schools. This entails attending the weekly meetings for both Francis Patton and Purvis primary schools and assisting with feedback and suggestions as needed. Mr. Chairman, the acting educational officers for the arts will continue to work with the STEM and Educational Services signature learning programs, developing well-articulated fine arts pathways that are culturally relevant, practical, and meaningful. A key priority for the arts will be to continue enhancing teaching practice and system leadership through content-specific professional learning opportunities, community partnerships, and contracted curriculum leader positions for music and visual arts. The acting education officer for information computer technology has delivered or organized schools with Schoology learning management systems, professional development for P1 to senior school teachers. Also, the acting education officer is a member of the Francis Patton Parish Primary School transformation teams, which meets bi-weekly and works on designing and prototyping the Longtail Academy. The prototyping provides opportunities for teachers and students to experience an additional support in reading and math and engage in art and sporting activities. The educational officer for math has ensured that all primary and senior school students have access to the Method Math site. This site provides questions similar to Checkpoint, which allows students step-by-step, which shows students step-by-step how to solve problems. Professional development was conducted with primary school teachers around bar modeling and problem solving, and with middle school teachers with algebra and geometry being the focal areas. In September 2022, 5 primary schools and 3 middle schools and 2 senior schools were given access to MyIMath, a pilot program. The rationale behind MyIMath uses the new Cambridge curriculum and embeds math mastery approaches in its teaching. Mr. Chairman, the education officer for reading is working with schools to implement a variety of reading programs. Mr. Chairman, the department continues to administer Gates-McGinty reading tests twice per year for students from primary 2 through senior 4. The department also uses the Amplify M-Class assessment tool and teacher training to use as a pilot project with the president of Literacy Hall, Inc., Dr. Margie Gillis, and the Bermuda College. Pilot classes with the access to assessments and teaching resources through Amplify are P1 and P2 classes at Dalton E. Tucker Primary, Paget Primary, and Elliott Primary. The department is also exploring the potential of implementation of a system-wide phonics program for all P1 and P3, possibly extending to P4 due to COVID impacts on the foundational years for those students. Using the UFLI Foundations program, which provides a phonics curriculum inclusive of daily lesson plans for teachers, similar to the presentation of the Haggerty phenomic awareness curriculum now in use for our Bright Star classes in the preschool through primary 3 classrooms. Mr. Chairman, the implementation of access to the online program platforms RAS Plus and Vocabulary A to Z for all primary school students in the BPSS and for use as an intervention tool in the middle schools. This provides students with access to a digital library and teachers with access to a tool to assist in reading instruction and progress monitoring through the use of comprehensive quizzes available for each assigned text. Ongoing teacher training and parent representations are provided in support for these tools. Mr. Chairman, the Education Officer for Reading and the Education Officer for Early Childhood and Special Education teamed up this year to offer a 10-week course to selected P1 teachers. Mr. Chairman, the Education Officer for Physical Education and Health has provided the following professional development for teachers. 1, interactive health fitness assessment software functionality. 2, the Spark Physical Education Assessment app. 3, 2-day cricketing workshop for all PE teachers in conjunction with the BCB. 4, 2-day golf workshops for all PE teachers in conjunction with the BGA. 2, adaptive PE awareness run by the adaptive PE teaching staff. And 6, assessment of physical education. Mr. Chairman, the following PE initiatives are underway in our schools. The pilot program for Spark PE, the pilot program for using heart rate monitors, IHT Spirit Assessment, Spirit System, which is a fitness assessment, and the digital curriculum for Smart Health and Spark PE curriculum. Mr. Chairman, our acting education officer for social studies introduced a project-based learning initiative for 2 teacher certification cohorts and 1 leader principal certification cohort. This officer also assisted P2 teachers with meetings and the needs of students who transition from P1 CCK classrooms using the following activities. 1, summer research for primary 2 unit construction. 2, delivered professional development to relevant P2 teachers on inquiry-based instruction. And 3, organized the early years resources and sourced relevant documents. Mr. Chairman, the education officer for social studies also contributed to education reform efforts by helping to develop the curricula for signature learning programs, helping to co-develop the BPSS pedagogical framework, attending school transformation team meetings for Francis Patton Parish School and the Hospitality and Tourism and Education Services Signature School. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27524, College and Career Pathways, has been budgeted with $434,000. Mr. Chairman, this business unit funds the Employability Skills Program, the Nursing Certification, and the Dual Enrollment Program at the Bermuda College. This cost center is also funded to cover the cost of leadership management of 2 college and career pathway officers. Mr. Chairman, in 23-24, we will be supporting student services with the alternative education path for the first girls' college and career pathways. This education officer for certification and college and career pathways has reported that the graduation rate for 21-22 academic year was 91%. Additionally, 9 students completed and received the Penn Foster High School Diploma program at the end of the 21-22 school year. The 9 of 12 students who are enrolled in the nursing assistant program at the Bermuda College achieved the nursing assistant certificate. 93%, or 112 students out of the 129 students who registered for the City and Guilds Employability Skills course passed the class. Program 1712, Early Childhood Development.
Sorry, Minister, if you just pause for a moment, I believe there's a member who has a point.
Yes, thank you.
Is there a
Chair.
point of clarification?
Just a clarification, if you could.
One moment, please, member. Minister, will you accept a point of clarification? Yes.
I'm just
Thank you.
won-
MP Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering if the minister could repeat the numbers of people that had the statistic there at the end.
Sure.
Thank you, Minister. If you wouldn't mind going back and repeating that for the benefit of the shadow minister. Thank you.
Thank you. And I said, additionally, I'll read the whole paragraph again. Mr. Chairman, in 23-24, we will be supporting student services with an alternative education path for the first girls' college and career pathways. The education officer for certification and college and career pathways has reported the graduation rate for 21-22 academic school year was 91%. Additionally, 9 students completed and received the Penn Foster High School Diploma at the end of the 21-22 school year, and 9 of 12 students who enrolled in the nursing assistant program at the Bermuda College achieved the nursing assistant certification. 93% or 212 students out of 229 who registered for the City and Guilds Employability Skills course passed that class.
Thank you, Minister. Please continue when you're ready.
Sure. Program 1712, Early Childhood Education. Mr. Chairman, on page B33, this section includes early childhood education, or ECE, early childhood special education, and early childhood education quality assurance. The main focus is on the continued transformation of early childhood education through closer alignment with developmentally appropriate practices and inquiry-based learning. ECE is piloting the CCK creative curriculum for kindergarten and primary 1 classes. I'll particularly note the CCK curriculum pedagogy and assessment aligned with the school redesign and Learning First vision for school transformation. Both Purvis Primary and Francis Patton Primary, our first designated parish primary schools engaged in school transformation, have included CCK in their school transformation design. Mr. Chair, when considering the transformation of the learning experience in P1, school redesign has led to one of the school's prototyping class hubs. These hubs support an ethos of joyful learning through meeting students where they are in development and learning. This approach to early education reduces stress on students and gives teachers permission to think critically and creatively in regard to planning and facilitating learning. Personalized learning experiences will result in building strong foundation and minimizing gaps in learning across P1 and P3, 2P3 continuum of learning and development. Progress is measured based on learners meeting objectives based on the ECE standards across the continuum. In this way, teachers and schools account for a year's worth of learning for a year's worth of schooling. Students are supported and enriched through being challenged within their personal zone for development, and this way, rigor and deeper learning are experienced at every level for learners. Mr. Chairman, special education in the form of early intervention has focused on providing learning support and other services identified through the MTSS process for preschool and early learning. The education officer working in this section has been coached in preschool teacher leaders in fidelity using the social emotional engagement knowledge and skills, or SEEKS. This teacher-to-teacher coaching model supports teacher leaders in coaching fellow teachers in meeting individual preschooler needs using SEEKS. The officer for ECE special education and preschool teacher leaders have also worked system-wide by training preschool staff in MTSS best practices, including the updated recommendations on alignment with student services. The CERTS, a research-based multidisciplinary framework for students requiring more intensive intervention, is working well for preschoolers in the Growing Connections class at Prospect Preschool. Mr. Chairman, the outcomes are outstanding, and we are seeing preschoolers mainstreamed after one term in the Growing Connections class. Preschoolers' gains are attributed to class size, teacher training, and expertise and para support. In addition, team members have training in implementing CERTS along with using a multidisciplinary approach to intervention. And for the honorable member, Growing Connections refers to the, when I spoke earlier about the functioning skills for ASD we're seeing more and more that is the class that's at Prospect Preschool for preschoolers, the ASD class. Mr. Speaker, given the transformation in early childhood education, the department is pleased to have added a quality assurance officer to first ensure that safety and health certifications are maintained at all preschools. Secondly, to ensure best practices across early childhood education beyond safety and health, especially as it relates to COVID-19 protocols. Foundational to inquiry education is the learning environment, often referred to as the third teacher. Preschools have been working to the learning environment to reflect the inquiry model. Hence, the quality assurance officer has been working with preschools to ensure the fidelity of learning environments, inclusive of indoor and outdoor learning spaces. Mr. Chairman, at the P1 level, the CCK classes have taken on a fresh and inviting design, including student-focused learning centers and class design supporting student collaboration and communications. The quality assurance officer has been working with the International CCK coach specifically to support CCK P1 teachers in implementing the CCK curriculum and classroom design. Mr. Chairman, Early Childhood Education has launched the Basic Learning Network in partnership with the Department of Health. The Early Childhood Policy Paper, A Bright Start for a Brilliant Future, advocates for cross-ministry and agency collaboration to promote community messaging and resources around what is proven to be essential for young children from birth through age 8 and to have strong foundation in life. Strong foundations are built through nurturing relationships and meaningful experiences. The Basics brings families and community together to give our children a strong start in life. We are using the 5 basic principles as a framework for birth to 5-year-old children for early education and care. These principles are: 1, maximize love, manage stress. 2, talk, sing, point. 3, count, group, and compare. 4, compare, explore through movement and play. And 5, read and discuss stories. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27175, the Child Development Program, currently funds the salaries of the dedicated CDP staff and programs. This team works diligently to maintain its accreditation status and engages in quarterly performance quality improvement sessions. Mr. Chair, the coordinator for the Child Development Program has been leading out in work for the Bermuda National Standards Committee reaccreditation. The reaccreditation process has been similar to applying for the first time accreditation. Mr. Chairman, some of the highlights of the Child Development Program in 22-23 have included cross-ministry collaboration and community partnerships. The Nurturing Our Nation campaign, led by the Ministry for Social Development and Seniors, afforded the Child Development Program the opportunity to participate in live stream panel discussions, focus groups, and a parenting expo. The Parenting Expo allowed parents and carers to meet many of the program's service providers and gain firsthand knowledge about CDP services. Some parents were even able to sign up their children for the Universal Developmental Screening. Mr. Chairman, the Child Development Program responded to the increased interest of fathers to access services and support by facilitating the Fathers Focus Group. The curriculum for the 6-week series was created by CDP specifically for fathers. The purpose of the group was for fathers to find mutual support amongst each other while gaining knowledge for CDP as well as services offered to support them. The fathers reflect on their parenting relationships with their children while considering ways in which to strengthen these relationships. The series was well attended and it is planned to be repeated. I must add, Mr. Chair, I attended some of those sessions as well, just to have an insight and to participate in the sessions. Mr. Chairman, the early childhood specialists have engaged in specialized training in Parent Stress Index. This index captures the joy as well as the challenges parents may be experiencing while parenting the child. The index helps inform parents of other services and support that they can engage in to address any concerns with stress-related matters. Mr. Chairman, the Child Development Program has chartered plans for the future through strategic planning with input from internal and external stakeholders. During 23-24, the Child Development Program will be engaged in developing a 1-year action plan to underpin the strategic work required for moving forward. Essential to the plan is that all vacant posts are going to be filled. Mr. Chairman, the Child Development Program anticipates engaging in onboarding new hires and the establishment of the Early Intervention Services, formerly the Portage Program. The Early Intervention Service is designed for Bermuda's using of a range of early intervention best practices. It will be staffed by the Early Intervention Supervisor with 3 Early Intervention Specialists. This EI team will engage in a whole child approach, and the service provided will be unique to each child depending on their strengths and needs, as well as that of their family. As a preventative service to parents, families, and carers of young children, the Child Development Program plans to create a specific service to provide parent and community education, including general information on child development that is specific to the needs of families and their child in service. CDP will also promote and connect families to the Basics, a cross-ministry and community-wide approach to help every family, help every child reach their potential. The Basics approach raises awareness about early childhood development. It helps build capacity through the community for engaging families around the basic principles. Basic Insights help families put the basic principles into action through twice-weekly science-based facts and activities to do with their child. Messaging is not limited to English only. The Basic is a complement of the first 1,000 days launched in 2023 by the Department of Health.
Minister, if that's a convenient moment, unless you have only a few more comments on child development.
I only have maybe 2 pages left in
Well,
this entire head.
Lo, should we pause there if it's convenient for you? I'm sorry to
Sure.
pause you in the middle of your remarks. And unless the Minister for Health wants to take us to lunch, perhaps Minister, you can move us for lunch.
Sure. I move that we convene for lunch.
Is there any objection to the motion that we convene for lunch returning at 2 p.m.? There being none, we will return at 2 p.m. when the Minister will conclude his comments on Head 17 of the Ministry of Education. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. How much time do we have left, Mr. Chairman?
We